Good afternoon, happy Friday everybody. Welcome back to the farm. So I just got back this afternoon from my relatively quick trip out to Iowa. Had a meeting with Pattern Ag, soil sampling, crop planning service that I kind of had started working with a year ago. That they've got some pretty interesting stuff going on. You might hear more about it later, you might not. I don't know yet. I haven't really decided. Went and visited Anna while I was out there, my sister. Spent the night at her place last night and came home first thing this morning. So on my way out there, or right before we left, we had a hurricane blow through here, and it gave us 2 inches of rain. It was a win. Like, could not have asked for much better than that for us, for our crops right now. So, gonna go look around at some fields. Apparently, we had another 1/4 of an inch this morning, which I was unaware of. But hey, that's great. So I think the crop's setting pretty good moisture-wise right now. We need to do some growth staging on some beans and take a look at the corn and just see where we're at. So let's go do some scouting. So it's really only been 3 days since I've seen all of our crops and stuff, but the beans seem to have made the biggest jump in those 3 days. These beans are getting some height to them. They've really filled out the rows. Nice dark green color to them. They're starting to look pretty darn good here. So this particular field, we're just north of the farm, you can see in the background over there, was not early planted. These were some of the later ones. But I sprayed some source out here. This is the field where we've got like rounds and then skips of source that was sprayed at late vegetative to early R1. And then we skipped 2 or 4 sprayer passes, 2 rounds, and we're going to come back in and do an application at R3. So we'll have an early application, a late application, and a check strip. And I just wanted to take a look, see where we're at growth stage wise and what these beans look like. Decent. They look pretty decent. Yeah, 3 days ago I could not have pulled out a root system like that. Great moisture, excellent looking roots. Look at all the nodules on that main stem in there. All these little buds and nodules right here. Those are the nitrogen fixing bacteria is kind of in those little nodules, and they take nitrogen out of the atmosphere and convert it into a plant available form. The plant provides them with some sugars and stuff to grow, and it's a beautiful thing. It turns our beans nice and dark green, and so I love seeing all those nodules on these roots, and there's a lot of them, especially right in here. That is great. Outside of that, we've got lots of flowers. This is easily an R2 soybean plant. Full bloom, not yet to R3 where we're starting to set pods. But lots of branching. We've got flowers on the branches. That looks great. We got good pods, starting to set a few pods on the main stem. However, you're not considering setting pods or R3, at least on the growth chart, until it's one of the top 4 nodes that is has a pod at least 3/16 of an inch long, or basically a 1/4 of an inch pod on it somewhere. So we're not there yet on these. This node right here, where my finger is, would be the 4th node down from the top. Potentially by late next week, we could be R3, but the other thing is they're still growing vegetatively. So every time we get a new trifoliate out the top, you kind of got to move up a node, and those haven't caught up. R2 is a pretty long growth stage in soybeans because of how much they're growing vegetatively and flowering and setting pods at the same time. So pretty darn healthy looking. I see very little cause for concern with disease or insects. So we got 1 hole in that leaf. Other than that, looks pretty good. Even the bottom leaves and the unifolia, it's got some discoloration to them, but the other ones are still pretty good shape. Yeah, I'm happy for these for late May planted beans. Now we're gonna we're gonna drive down the road and walk the next field of beans here. Those are the first planted beans in May, and they're a full season bean that we've been pushing with some Anderson's products. All right, now these beans are just gorgeous. Beautiful. B-E-A-U-T-ful. Yes, they are. These are 3/4. And we have sprayed our Anderson's products out here. We've made just one application so far. I'm ready to make a second one. That's part of the reason we're here, was to see if the ground is dry enough. It is not. It is muddy. That's sticking in my shoes. So we're not going to be able to do it today. Maybe tomorrow, probably Monday. We'll keep an eye on the weather. I do notice a few holes in some leaves out here. We've got some insect feeding. This looks like Japanese beetle to me. Could be some bean beetles. Could be some other caterpillars or something out here. I may throw some insecticide in the tank because I have some. It's cheap and I don't like holes in my leaves. That's pretty much why. But yeah, you can see we've got nice flowers on these. Let me pull one of these plants up and we'll look at it like we did the last ones. They're right there. Look at that. Look at them right there. Japanese beetles. All right. So immediate reactions, looking at the roots, we're seeing the same thing we saw in the last ones, and lots of nice nodules. I like seeing them right here close to the main stem. We've got some on some of these lateral roots as well, but the closer to the main stem, the better. There's a whole cluster of them right there. That all looks good. Lots of really nice branching. I thought this was interesting that we've got this little trifoliate that I'm pretty sure that's where the cotyledons were attached initially. But yeah, they look good. Let's do a growth stage here. Are we still at R2 or we've made it to R3 yet? Right there's our 4th node. While those may be pods, they're mostly just dead flowers, definitely not 3/16 of an inch long, so we're still going to call these an R2 soybean. So it is not time for our R3 fungicide and foliar pass, but I've got a foliar pass I want to make before that, which is why it needs to get done now. We're just going to have to wait on the ground conditions. If I had a drone, we could come and do it, but I don't have a drone sprayer. Oh well. They look really good. These are my beans that I'm really pushing. I'm hoping that we have some 90 to 100 bushel beans out here when it's all said and done. Now that fully depends on rainfall in August and September, but we have that potential out here. I'm not sure when the straw guys did that, but clearly before it rained, they got the straw baled on this field. That's good. That's good. All right, let's look at some corn. So this is the first planted field of corn. A little short and stunted here on the ends in the corner where we started, but I bet we walk out here, we'll find some pretty good corn. I believe this is 110-day corn. Could be 111. I think it's 110. And it's pollinating right now. Right now. Lots of pollen shedding off those tassels. We've got silks emerged on some of the plants, not on all of them, so that's a little uneven. I don't like that, but it's fine. It is what it is. Oh, let's see what we've got. There's some of that insect feeding. Probably Japanese beetles. Ooh, look at the pollen just falling everywhere, coating the leaves. Cool. Let me look for a second. Well, for the most part, the leaves look really clean and healthy. I don't see any tar spot. I've heard it's in the area. I have yet to find some on any of our stuff. We do have some black spots like that, but they almost always rub off, which means that it's more likely bug poop than tar spot. So the only thing I am seeing is some of this kind of spotting. I don't know if that's a little bit of early gray leaf spot setting in. It could be. Like I said, we're going to get a fungicide on here shortly, so we'll clean it up, whatever it is. That's a little more concerning. I don't know if that's a disease. Yeah, could be some grays, could be something else, but for the most part it looks really good. So I pulled an ear. We're gonna go out here back to the gator where we're not standing in the corn and see if it's pollinated, and I'll show you that a little bit. One thing I did notice, when you get down low and you look up through the leaves, you can see some streaking in it. That looks like sulfur deficiency to me. That's something that I'm realizing more and more this year, is that the amount of sulfur that I'm putting on in the starter with the planter is not sufficient. We've got to figure out how to get more sulfur out here. Do a better job with that. All of this light dark streaks in the leaves. It could be zinc. It's more likely sulfur. But anyway, it's not the end of the world, but I don't like seeing it. Okay, so I pulled this ear, and we're going to unwrap it very carefully, and there's a trick you can do to tell how your pollination progress is and how many of the kernels have pollinated. So you'll see all these silks coming out the end here, right? Well, what we know about corn pollination is that every one of these silks is attached to an individual kernel. So every individual kernel, it's not really a kernel at this point, it's a potential kernel, grows a silk. And these silks have little hairs on them. I don't know if you guys can see that real well. You can kind of see it on there. And when the pollen falls on these, it gets absorbed into that silk, which is about 85% water, which is why it's important to have rain during pollination so your silks can grow. The pollen grain then travels down that silk until it reaches that potential kernel and essentially fertilizes it like an egg. And then once that happens, that silk detaches from the kernel. So if we very carefully pull these last husks off and don't pull on the silks, we can shake it and see which ones have detached from the kernels and therefore have already pollinated versus which ones are still attached and still looking for pollen. This one has not pollinated much yet. It will almost always start from the butt of the ear, the base, and work its way towards the tip because those silks start growing first and they're the first ones to emerge. But as I shake this, you'll see none of them are really falling off. All right, we've still got silks attached all the way from the tip, and these ones you can see are shorter because they're still growing, down to the base, and those ones are longer. It kind of curves up like that. So we haven't done hardly any pollination yet. We're just getting started. The next few days will change that drastically. But that's that. So now we can look at this ear, and you will remember, was it a week ago? It was Saturday. Was that just a week ago? I think that was just a week ago. We did my corn dissection video. Maybe it was 2 weeks ago. I don't know. But you'll remember the size of the ears that we found there, and that corn had not tasseled yet. So this is definitely farther along, but we're only a week later. Maybe, I don't remember what field I pulled that. Oh, it was from the irrigated field. It was planted 2 days after this, 3 days after this, but it's fuller season corn. So basically that's how much this ear has grown in a week, if you go back and look at that. All right, so we pulled all the silks off of there, and now we can do some counting. So I'll try and count the rows around. And remember, it is always an even number. So I'm going to pop a couple kernels out of there so that I can know where I started from. All right. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. That's good. 18 is good. I'll try and get a somewhat accurate length. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 46, 47, 48. I mean, it's 48 to there. I could say that there is another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 potential kernels there. 50 would be really long. If we can get an 18 by 40 ear to pollinate and fill out, whoo, this is dang good corn. But the potential is there. That little dry stretch we had early, it hurt. But you don't give up on corn in June. Certainly not in May. It's got a lot of growing to do. But the potential is there. The potential is there. I'm pretty happy with it. We'll see what happens. All depends on the weather from here on out. Let's run up north to the irrigated field. I'm sure we do not need to turn it on for a little while yet. But we'll just go check it out and see what things look like up there. I'm pretty darn proud of this field. Doesn't look so great right on these ends here, but I wanted to point something out. Do you see all of this laying on the ground? Look at this. Look at it. Look at all the leaves laying on the ground, drying up. Do you know what that's from? Every single one of those is deer damage. The deer come walking along in here. Look at them all. And they come down and they bite the center of these plants out. They pull the whorl out, take a bite, and throw the rest on the ground. That is exactly what this is from. Deer eating the corn. Dang deer. Anyway, it's fairly isolated along the edges usually. Here you can see all their tracks. They coming through here. Let's walk out here. This corn looks freaking awesome. Oh, it's tall up here. This is 112 day. Just starting to push tassels out. A little farther behind that other stuff. You also planted 2 days later. But it looks really, really, really good. We don't see the streaking quite as bad here. A little bit, but not as much. But we've been putting sulfur on, so I think that's helping. You can see some of the bottom leaves are yellowing up and starting to dry out. That could be some nitrogen stress from a couple of weeks ago when things were dry. More likely it's the fact that we're shaded out really well down here. Like there's a little sunlight hitting the ground, but not much. So they're just not getting any sunlight to do anything. So those leaves have done their job. But yeah, this is gonna be pretty good corn. Pretty good corn. Got lots of moisture, as we would expect with what we've been putting on. This is the rain field, so and we had 2 inches of rain on it, or 2 1/4 in the last 3 days, so all looks good. This corn also looks very healthy. Leaf tissue looks great. One of the advantages, if you want to call it that, of being dry early in the year like we were, is that we don't have that leaf wetness that's kind of conducive environment to disease growing and taking over stuff. So our leaf disease pressure at this point is low. Now we've gotten some rain the last few days, and that's going to potentially create the right environmental conditions for some diseases to take over. And so I think the fungicides are still going to be important. But that's also one of the reasons why this 360 rain is so much better of an irrigation system than our hard hose traveler was, or than what a pivot would be. We don't get the leaves wet. So a lot of times irrigated corn, specifically with a pivot, where you're covering it frequently, it can have a lot higher disease pressure because the leaves are wet so much. I don't have that. We're putting water on the base of the plants, so it's preventing disease from that standpoint. That is good. Another thing, though, to consider on the disease and plant health front, we just had a hurricane blow through here from Texas, and I have no idea what it picked up along the way. There is a pretty good chance that we're going to see some more disease pressure of things like southern rust, tar spot, northern corn leaf blight, maybe gray leaf spot, all those things that may be more progressed down south farther where they have bigger corn. Diseases that sometimes we get, sometimes we don't, depending on weather patterns. They could have blown up last week with that hurricane, or earlier this week. So it'll take a few weeks for that stuff to show up, but we have a very high risk for more disease than we have seen in the past. On another note, while we're up here, I got a call from Dad while I was driving home today. And apparently somebody from our power company watches my videos because a project manager stopped out at the farm here today, said, hey, we saw what you're doing, or your YouTube videos about your irrigation stuff and needing power, and thought we'd come and check it out. I have not called them yet. I did not set this up. It's purely from them watching my videos. So apparently I've got some reach. Take note, advertisers. Yeah, so they came up here. I wasn't around, but they came up and looked at stuff, took a bunch of notes on what we're trying to do and horsepowers and all the things. And they're going to put some numbers together for us. And they said, well, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks we could have it hooked up. I am shocked by that, utterly shocked. So I haven't thrown shade at them as far as calling them out by name, but I hadn't been real optimistic, and I'm pleasantly surprised. So thank you to whoever that was at the power company, and hopefully you're not trying to gouge us for 100 grand to bring the power across the road. We'll find out. Let's go look at one more field of beans. We'll go check out our March beans. They're all growing, they're all looking better. These were planted long before this. This is my plot field. And they were some of the last ones planted, and they've been behind all year and not looked great, but they're getting better. They're just 2 weeks behind. Yep, these look pretty good too. I am mostly really happy with our March 25th planted beans here. One thing I have found about planting early, especially these ultra early ones like this, is they tend to not be as tall. For whatever reason, having them planted earlier, it doesn't necessarily stop them from growing vegetatively and putting nodes on. It just shortens up the length of the inner nodes. So they just don't ever get as tall, but that's okay. All right, let me pull a plant here. There's a decent one by itself right there. Ugh. Ugh. I didn't get the roots on that one. Holy cow. Look at all of them. Broke it off. Look at that. Look at those branches. Look at the pods. Awesome, awesome, awesome. These might be getting to R3. Let's look a little bit. We got some insect feeding. We're going to have to spray some insecticide out here. Lots of pods on these lower ones. I broke a branch off. Mostly healthy leaves. As far as disease pressure goes, I don't see anything too concerning. Even the lower ones look really healthy. That's good. We got a little brown spots on that one. Other than that, not bad. So I would still consider these to be R2 beans. I have the main stem in my hand right here. Look at all those branches though. That's incredible. But we count down 4 nodes from the top fully expanded trifolia, and that is the pod set that we've got. That's not quite big enough. However, if you look down one more, we do have what I would consider to be a 3/16 to 1/4 inch long pod right there. So we're kind of 1 node away from that, but we're growing vegetatively at the same time. I would say next week sometime will be the right R3 fungicide timing, and then you go down a couple more nodes and we got pods. We got pods forming, and they look really good. But see how short the distance here is between these nodes? They don't ever really get stretched out. Means they get lots of nodes on them, and they stay pretty short. But there's a lot. Oh my gosh, the branching on these. That looks great. So another big thing happening for us this week. We're getting some landscaping, finally getting some landscaping done. So we've outsourced this, hired a company to do it for us because I just don't have the time and really the ability. But yeah, so they're bringing in some plants, got the edging in, and the fabric put down. My wife and I are supposed to look tonight and kind of approve plants and locations and all of that kind of stuff, but they got it staged here, and I think it looks really good. I'm gonna figure out what's going on in this corner here, but yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. I think it'll look really good. I had another box sitting here from 360 Yield Center. We had been breaking these drops, right? And they were using these PVC glue on. Oh, that's not right. Fittings here, kind of like that. I don't know which one that came off of, but we kept breaking them. It's a problem, right? Well, they hurt us. They had sent me a couple new ones last week after the first ones dropped or broke, but they were the same style. Oh, I got a couple more. And look at these. Much better. That seems to be much beefier. So we'll put those on if we have any more trouble. Nice. Thank you. That's a company taking care of their customers and, you know, improving things as needed. So awesome. Well, it's too muddy to do any spraying today in some beans. I've got that one field of those 3-4 beans I want to put some more foliars on ASAP. We'll look at it maybe tomorrow, but I got a few other things going on tomorrow, so I don't know if that'll work either. I am heading home. landscaping guy's supposed to meet me out there for looking at plants and stuff, so we'll figure that out. And I haven't seen my family in 3 days. They're not home yet, but should be shortly. So have a great weekend, everybody. I wanted to get one out here this afternoon with checking out the crops and scouting and stuff. Is it? Are you? Yeah. You're dirty. Sorry. Since we got the rain, see how stuff has improved, which it has. And we're sitting in pretty darn good shape right now. There's rain in the forecast for next week, so we have not had too much, but we're not drying right now. We're setting really, really well. So have a great night. Have a great weekend. I'll see you guys on Monday, most likely. Wait a minute. One more thing. Maybe this is earlier in the video because I should put it in earlier. The opportunity for you to go to Farm Focused and get your t-shirts and support the 50 Mile March is ending on the 14th, which I believe is Sunday. So go grab yourself a Best RX shirt. There are kid sizes available there now. Go grab a Border View Farm shirt. I would appreciate your support in that, and donating to the 50 Mile March. $5 from every shirt and hat sold goes to that. So check it out for me, please. Thanks.